Vocal production is one of the most important pieces of producing music, unless you aren't producing vocal music, in which case this video is completely irrelevant. But if you produce music with vocals, there are 5 huge mistakes I see producers making all the time that if you make even one of these mistakes, your vocals will sound amateur, pretty much guaranteed. We're not gonna waste any time, let's do it. Number 1, poor source. I've talked about this before, but it is so insanely crucial that we have to talk about it. If you're recording vocals that are like this,
is a blessing, whoa,
then you're doing it wrong. Source is what's being recorded from your mic into your DAW. And if that is not tracked properly, then you're basically setting yourself up for a world of headaches. And in many cases, it's just not even fixable. There are really 3 pieces to this. The first is recording way too hot. In other words, you're clipping or getting dangerously close to clipping. Number 2 is recording in a crappy environment. And number 3 is improper mic placement. These are all very easy to fix, except maybe the environment part that's a little harder. But here's how you prevent recording too hot. You always need to give yourself plenty of room by recording no louder than -6 dB, and that's with the fader at 0. This will guarantee that you are not even close to clipping and have plenty of room to work with once you start processing your vocals. It's always better to record on the soft side as opposed to the hot side, obviously within reason. If your waveform is almost non-existent, then that isn't good either. So typically you're gonna have -18 on the bottom, -6 at the top, and that's really where you want to be existing. The environment issue can be fixed a couple different ways. The first is obviously acoustic treatment, which is more of an expensive option, or you can use a dynamic mic, which will actually reduce reflections. Those types of microphones are gonna essentially kind of cancel out a lot of the bad reflections that could potentially go into the mic. Or you could get a makeshift vocal booth or a vocal shield. Now this vocal shield option is less than ideal since a lot of them really don't actually help a lot. And some of them can be basically as expensive as just getting acoustic treatment. And then there's mic placement. If you are too close to the microphone, then it can be really bassy, kind of woofy, a little bit muddy, but you can oftentimes get a more intimate sound by doing that. And if you're too far away, it's gonna be thin and it's gonna lack that natural sound. There's a time and place for each of these methods, but using them at the wrong time is gonna cause problems in the long run. Billie Eilish, for example, does that really close whispery thing with her voice, and that works pretty well. But if you're doing something more shouty, you're probably gonna wanna be a little bit further from the microphone, and oftentimes you want your backup vocals further from the microphone so they are not hogging up a lot of the mid-range. Number 2 is crappy performances. It is always really mind-blowing to me how often producers are just so lazy when it comes to performance. And I see this a lot more frequently with self-producing artists. If you produce your own music, then please, for the love of all that is good, spend time practicing and spend time dialing in your performances. If you're producing artists, it's a little bit easier to coach them through a session, but if you're producing your own music, it's a little bit trickier. Producing is permanent, so what you record is locked in. But yet I hear so many recordings where it seems that the effort on the performance just went out the window. I mean, it's almost like you expect pitch correction software to fix a crappy performance when that is 100% not the case. Pitch is only a small part of a performance, and in my opinion, it's the easiest part to fix, but also kind of the least important. Here are 2 aspects that are way more important than pitch. The first is expression. Are you singing with the emotion of that song from a dynamic and expressive perspective? Are you capturing the essence of that melody or that performance? If not, then it's gonna feel out of place. And I see this all the time. It's like you just get in front of the mic and just kind of randomly sing it in rather than spending time thinking about the articulation of the song and the lyrics, the melody, and how they all work together. You need to do this. That's the first. The second is diction. And this is how you actually pronounce or enunciate words. And this is something that almost no one's talking about. I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about it, and I'm not gonna go super deep here, but when you're singing, the way you pronounce words is phenomenally important in how that vocal will be perceived. Are you singing with a loose diction or a tight diction? So for example, how I said tight diction. That's 2 very different things. More snappy or more laid back. Billie Eilish sings with a very loose diction where she's almost under-pronouncing her words. Just think about how a singer is actually pronouncing words next time you listen to music. It's gonna open up a whole new world to how melodies and lyrics are perceived when you think about it this way. This is actually something that I spend a ton of time coaching vocalists through when I'm doing recording sessions, and even when I'm the performer on the track, I'm thinking about this very, very actively. Lauv also has this really underpronounced way of singing too, but it's in a more smooth fashion. Are you singing in the front of your mouth or in the back of your mouth, more nasally or more throaty? All of these have to do with the shape of vowels and how those vowels are pronounced. So if you want better performances, stop saying, oh, the pitch was good, that means the performance was good. That's super basic. That's like super basic. You can go way deeper than that to get amazing performances. Number 3, the third mistake is not editing. Now we just got done talking about performances and how key those are, and that is 1000% true. But that doesn't mean that you're not gonna edit, right? Because even with killer performances, you need to edit your vocals. And I'm not just talking about editing pitch either. I'm talking about removing silences to prevent pops and clicks and other breaths and things like that. Sometimes you do want to keep the breaths, by the way. You don't want to get rid of all of them because they might sound unnatural. But you want to get rid of some of these random noises that might be heard so that when you actually start processing, those things don't get popped to the front. Adding fades at the beginning and ending of all audio regions, cleaning up your vocals so they're super clean. I guess that was a little redundant, you know, cleaning so they're clean. Yeah, that. I personally use Vocaline for this. I'm actually getting ready to put up a video about that here soon. But you can either use software or you're gonna have to manually edit with the scissor and fade tool, which I also have a video on, but wait to watch those till later. Here's how big of a difference rhythmic editing makes. Here's a part with non-edited vocals.
Every second we have, it's a blessing. Every minute we get another chance to look at what we got.
And here's that part now that it's been edited rhythmically.
Every second we have, it's a blessing. Every minute we get another chance to look at what we got. Don't you see it?
Makes a really big difference. Those were still pretty solid performances, but they needed tweaking to become what they needed to be, so they are now super locked in. The more vocal layers you have, the more you're gonna have to do this, by the way. And if you want to complain about how editing vocals is ruining music, honestly, just save it. I've heard it all, and if you want to think that, that's fine. It's your call. But if you're confused why you're consistently not able to get professional sounding vocals, editing is one of those things that every single professional producer does. Like, no joke, if you hear anything on Spotify or anything professionally produced, it is exceptionally rare to find examples where the vocals are not edited. This is industry standard stuff. And of course, there is pitch correction. There's plenty of different software options that you can use. There's Melodyne, Autotune, Flex Pitches in Logic. There's even Wavestune, which is a more affordable option. There's Revoice. There are plenty of different ones. They pretty much all work the same. They pretty much all get the same thing done. Just pick one that you feel like you resonate with and then do it. Number 4 is not layering vocals. To be clear, not every song needs massive vocal layers, but vocal layers are one of those things that can literally do magic in a song. We're talking about adding vocal doubles, octaves, harmonies, gang vocals, etc. Listen to the track that I showed you just a bit ago in the verse. I'm gonna play it with just the lead vocal and no layers.
Every second we have, it's a blessing. Every minute we get another chance to look at what we got.
So this still sounds decent, right? It's not bad. But now listen with all those layers turned on and just think about how all those different layers we've got going on and how this actually impacts how you hear the song.
Every second we have, it's a blessing. Every minute we get another chance to look at what we got.
That makes a really big difference. There are so many ways to layer vocals. You can have 2 doubles and then pan them really hard on the sides, and then you have one in the middle for your lead vocal. You can do harmonies, you can do octaves above the vocal or octaves below the vocal to emphasize the melody. You can do complex chords like triads and even 4-note chords with your vocals to create all these crazy little harmonizations and things like that. There are so many options. But when I hear music where it's nothing but a single lead vocal, it oftentimes feels like it needs more. Again, not every song needs this. There are plenty of tracks that I've done where it's just one lead vocal and that's it, because maybe that's what the song is actually calling for. When it comes down to it, you have to identify what your goal is with the song and then be intentional. The problem here is that a lot of producers are just simply not thinking about the result that they actually want, and then they don't do it because they aren't approaching their productions with clear goals for what their music should be. So if you're making folk music or ballad music or acoustic music, then maybe this is a little less relevant. But I've heard lots of those genres that still have lots of vocal layers. They don't need to be huge and snappy and out front and poppy and stuff like that. Sometimes they can be really quiet and subtle and add a lot of character and depth to the vocal. The beautiful thing is, it's up to you. And number 5, I want you to hear me out on this one. Not being intentional. I know you might be tempted to leave because you're thinking, okay, but hear me out. One of the key things that I believe producers often miss out on is the idea of intentionality. In other words, doing things on purpose. So often producers are just shooting in the dark, hoping that they make sounds that are cool, but it's basically all a guessing game. And this is not how professional producers work. When I'm producing a song, I am extremely specific about how I want to accomplish every moment. I am planning and outlining what the vocals will do throughout the song before we ever get a mic out. Not just from a harmonies perspective, but from an emotional perspective, a creative perspective, even from a mixing perspective sometimes, because I'll know, oh, you know what, I'm gonna add a vocal throw there, or I'm gonna add a reverb reverb throw there. So I'm gonna have to have space to do that. Or adding in more unique effects that require knowing that before I ever record. The way you fix this mistake is by making a plan before recording. If you aren't intentional, then you just have to decide that you are going to be. It will take work, and it's not gonna happen overnight, but when you produce vocals next, come up with a plan. Think through what emotion you want to convey and how you will actually accomplish that emotion. Will it be through emotional performance, layers, effects? Ask questions, get super curious and ask tons of questions and then answer those questions, because when you do, you're gonna gain clarity about how your music should actually sound. There's nothing wrong with experimenting and getting creative, but too often producers expect you to just do everything off the cuff and don't think about a plan at all. I change things mid-session all the time, but it's always in the context of a plan. Even if I'm the vocalist, I know what I wanna do and how I'm gonna do it. All these mistakes are inspired by music that I've given critical feedback on in my program, Producer Accelerator. We do weekly Feedback Friday sessions where me and my team have given feedback on over 500 songs. And these are mistakes that pop up time and time again for my students. I wanted to share them with you in this video because I think it's gonna help you. But what will help you even more is joining Producer Accelerator. I rarely pitch you guys in these videos, but for real, so many of you watching are stuck. You're stuck creating music you know isn't sounding how you want. You're stuck not knowing what moves to make. Heck, you might hear me saying, be intentional, and you don't even know how to do that or what that means. This is exactly why I created Producer Accelerator. It is fully comprehensive on every aspect of production, from idea inception to final mix. Over 180 lessons, a world-class private community, access to me and my team of professional producers, and most importantly, we actually get results. That's the one thing you should care about. Does it work? Our members literally go out of their way to talk about how much their music has improved. We have members releasing music on all platforms, producing for clients, and making the music that they have always been dreaming of.
Progression that I've taken over these last, year and a half or something like that, I just don't see it happening outside of the course and the group and things like that. I just don't see myself. I mean, I have clients now.
I signed up to Producer Accelerator, and I'd made this song, and it was sounding just so much better than anything else I'd ever made. I put it out, and it was so funny because people started messaging me. Who mixed that? Who did you? Can you get me in touch with whoever mixed it? What studio did you go to get that done? No, I made that. And they're like, are you serious?
Give much more than any course out there.
How many official releases have you done since you joined?
But yeah, 16. I'm counting the collaborations in here.
It's been an unbelievable, game-changing experience for me.
So here's the deal. I almost never do sponsored content on this channel because I actually run a self-sustaining business, so I don't have to do sponsored content. But Producer Accelerator is a culmination of all my sweat and blood to help raise up the next generation of producers. We've trained over 600 producers in the last year, and I want you to be the next one. If you're a Producer Accelerator member watching this, then drop a comment down below what you think of Producer Accelerator so everyone can see this is not just some other course. And with that, click on the link right here where you can join the program, and I can't wait to see you on the inside.